into the article recreation. So all you're going to do here within the article recreation, okay, is you're going to create an 8.511 document size with a 1/4 inch margin and a 0.125 inch bleed, okay, which is an 1/8 inch. And you're going to just recreate the article exactly as is, okay? The fonts are included in the folder and the labeled image, which font is which. So this is pretty self-explanatory. This is just to practice InDesign more than anything else, okay? So I find it best, you can click on the article recreation files, but you'll get into that folder and have to download them individually. So I find it easiest just to open up the folder. Here's your article recreation files. You're going to right click and download. It'll take a second to zip it. It's not huge, shouldn't take too long, okay? Once this downloads, there it goes, okay? I'm going to open up my article recreation folder. I'm going to delete the zip file because I don't need it anymore. And here's my file. So the first thing you're going to have is the photo. So there's the photo to use for the recreation. Then you're going to have the layout. Now, here's the layout. Now, you'll notice it says Agrotesc, 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 Helvetica, Agrotesc, okay? Those are the fonts that you're going to use. Do not type that and put it into the document, all right? That's simply there to label the text. You're going to recreate this article just as is. As well as that, I have given you the text, okay? There it is. And the fonts. So to install the fonts, you're just going to double click, and you may or may not have these fonts. You're going to double click the folder that you just had. I find it easiest to just basically grab these 4 files, hold shift, right click and open, okay? And I did the suite. Don't worry about the suite, sorry, just put these 3 files. All right, here's the files. I just installed the font. Okay, now this, it's telling me I have serious errors. I'm going to click on this and drop it down, and I'm basically just going to hit install checked. Okay, don't ask me again, install. So you can install the font. Okay, you could also do that individually. You probably already have Helvetica. This is the whole suite for Helvetica. Okay, so you can double click and do the same thing just as one if you want to. Okay, I already did it. I'm not going to do it again. Now I have the font installed, so I'm going to go in InDesign. All right, and you'll notice that my directions were to create a new document. All right, article recreation, I have to fix those numbers. That is 1/4 inch margins and 0.125 inch bleed. So I'm going to click create new. All right, I'm going to do 8.511. My margins will be 0.25. Now, if you just highlight this and just type 0.25 and hit the tab key, it'll automatically self-populate them because they're linked. All right, the bleed and the slug. So the bleed is going to be 0.125, which is an 1/8, and I hit tab. Now, the bleed area, as we'll discuss in class, okay, is the area that any document, any image, or anything that you want to be fully beyond the edge of the paper has to go. This 8.511 document, if we were printing it, would get printed on a larger sheet of paper and then trimmed. So the bleed allows for there to be no white space along the edge of the paper. All right, if you just had the line, all right, if you just put the image to the edge of the sheet, print it on a larger piece of paper, if you hand cut it, you wouldn't necessarily have a problem. But if you're cutting a stack of them, the machine bumps, things move, so you need a little bit of space, that 1/8 of an inch space that makes sure that you don't have any white, okay? An 1/8 is generally the default bleed size. You can make a bleed 1 inch, but the problem is you're gonna need a bigger sheet of paper to put it on, okay? So basically, the bleed is the area where all of your images that go to the edge of the page have to go, all right? So I created that. That's all I need. Whoop, messed my bleed up. 0.125, okay? 1/4 of an inch, 8.511, create. So here's my document I'm going to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to save this. I'm going to save file, save as, desktop. And you might just want to tuck it into this folder here, okay? And just Mr. B recreate. Okay, so I have it saved. Now I'm going to go to File, Place, or Command D, and I'm going to go into the recreation folder. And the first thing I want to do is I want to bring in the sample file. Hit open and click. And all I'm going to do is I am going to tuck this right to the side right here so that I have it to look at. Okay, and I might zoom out a little bit. Let me hide my properties. Okay, so there it is. Don't scale it because you've got it. All right, so now I've got this here. So I'm going to pull this right here so I have it. So the next step is I want to place this image in. Okay, so actually, no, I'm gonna pop this right over my document like this. Okay, and there it is. There is your layout. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle frame tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that matches the shape of this guy here, okay? And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see it. All right. Now, I want that to be this color. So I'm going to grab my color picker while that's highlighted, and I'm going to click on it. Now, do you see these blue lines that are here, no matter what I have? Those are your bounding box lines. They don't print. If you don't want to see them, okay, you basically hold the Shift, the Option, and the H keys. Oops, sorry, Shift Command H, and it'll hide them. Maybe it won't. Control Command H? Control Command H hides them. And I believe it's under View, Extras, Show Frame Edges. There it is, okay? So again, View, Extras, Hide Frame Edges, which is Control Command H. I generally hide them. I find it easier just to look at as I'm working on it. So I'm going to drop this right here for now. It's going all the way to the bleed. Okay, snap it to the bleed. Now I've got that. Now I want to bring my image in. Okay, and so I'm going to show you a trick. So I'm going to take the box, all right, and I'm going to drag the box the size I need, which is the size of this image. Okay, now with that highlighted, I'm going to go to File, Place, or Command D, and I'm going to grab the photo, and I'm going to click Open. Now when I do that, it pops it right into the box, which is great, okay, but it's not the right size. So there's a couple things you can do. The first I'm going to do is I'm going to try to have it auto-fit. So I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to go to Fitting. And I'm going to say Fill Frame Proportionally. We'll see what happens. Okay? Pretty close, right? Not great, but I can fix that. So inside, if you right-click on any image, you have these fitting options you can do, which is kind of nice. And that way you don't have to scale the whole image down like we normally would do. So I know it's the size of the box. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the image itself, right? I'm going to hold the Shift key. And I'm going to scale till I get it right about what I want it to be. If it's not exact, it's okay. All right. I need that whole left side of that orange in there. So I can take this, and that's pretty good. Okay. So you guys see how I did that? Again, I make the box the size of the image that I need it. Oop. Okay. Probably bring this down just a smidge. Now I'm going to take that box, pull it over for a second so I can see it. Command D. Click my photo. Any box that's highlighted will automatically place the image into, whether you want it to or not, which sometimes is annoying. Okay, now I've got this, and I'm just, instead of doing the auto fit, I'm going to click on the box. You'll notice how gigantic the image is. See that? It's zooming out. And I'm just going to hold the Shift key and bring this back to where I want it. And I know I can see that full bottom grapefruit there, so I'm just kind of scaling this down to fit the image. Okay? And again, if it's a tiny bit off, it's not the end of the world. All right, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to drag that right here. All right, and what I'm doing is I'm just getting myself set up with the basics here. So I'm using my arrows. Now, I need a line down here, so I'm just simply going to take this and I'm going to copy paste, Command C, Command V. If you really feel like it, edit, copy, edit, paste. What else can you do? Remember, you can also hold the Option key, click and drag, just like in Illustrator. So you've got edit, copy, edit, paste, Command C, Command V, or hold the Option key and drag, all of which will copy. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to tuck this right up against the bleed. I'm going to drop this down, snap it over, and now I've got my gray boxes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to grab the file for me to look at, and I'm just going to tuck it over here for now so I can see what's going on. So you can see I have my basic frame here. Okay, for my recreation. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll make this white box. So I'm going to, now, in InDesign, what you don't want to do, and it's because it's very limiting. Let's say this says that this font is A Grotesque, right? So I'm going to grab a box and I'm going to type those words in. I'm going to click all caps and I'm going to type the fruit that makes your skin. Okay? And I'm going to highlight this. And I'm going to go to my properties, and I'm just going to look for A Grotesque, and it should be AG, and of course it's not going to pop up. There it is, A, because it's a space. So I click A Grotesque, okay? Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to pump that font up until I get it to the right size. So in a second, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to drag it right over here, okay? And you can see it's still tiny. So I'm going to highlight the text, and keep on going. Let's go down a little bit. That looks pretty good. Now, some things you'll notice here. You'll notice that I got to get my box bigger because my text is dropping. So I got to take this over here, okay? What do we see? We see that the tracking's a little different. So I'm going to grab this up here, and I'm going to go to my properties, and I'm going to need to, let's pull the properties out over here for a second so I can see what's going on. Libraries, I don't need. Remember, this whole thing is very, you can move everything. So I'm going to scoot this over, and I'm just going to bump it. Boom, matches up. Now the bottom one comes in a little bit, so I'm going to tip this back a little bit till it goes in. And again, it's okay if it's a little off. It's not the end of the world. All right, I'm going to try to get it as close as possible. Now, I also noticed that I've got some issues with the line space, okay, which is called kerning. All right, excuse me, leading. So my line space is my space between lines. My tracking is the space between letters. So if I go to my paragraph or my character box, all right, which is right here, all right, under my settings, I can actually adjust that spacing. So it's right here, leading. Okay, so you have your leading and you have your tracking. So now I can start to bump this up until it matches up. Okay, so I'm adjusting my leading until it lines up. So now I've got it perfectly lined up. All I need to do now, let me tuck this back over here, is I need to make my color. So we've got the gray, and what you should really be doing is the same thing we do in Illustrator. Go to your windows, okay, go to your color, and go to your swatches. And you want to make sure that basically you get rid of all of these colors here, just like you do in Illustrator. Highlight them, delete them, all right? I've got this box. Now, you can't drag in InDesign. They won't let you do it. What you can do is right-click on this and say Add Swatch, which I think is actually easier. So there's the gray. The next thing I'm going to do is grab my picker, and I'm going to get the red that's right here, okay? So I have that same red. Right-click, Add to Swatches. Okay, now, understand that this eyedropper tool is not just for color. It would be any type of attribute. Okay, so for instance, if I typed down here this font, when I grab my eyedropper tool and I click here, it grabs every attribute of this font. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're using it. It's not just color, so you might get an effect in something that you don't want to get. So now I've got the red and I've got the gray. Those are the only colors I need for this. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this text and I'm going to make it red. Boom. All right, now I'm going to slide this over. Now, this is what a lot of people want to do. Well, I need a white box. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to make the white box like this. Okay, the problem with that is your text is lined up right at the top. You don't want to go in here and try to hit a return, try to do all kinds of funky things. So generally speaking, don't put color into the text box. All right, what you're going to want to do instead, here's my text, I'm going to make a white box. So I'm going to grab the box, all right, and I actually want to pull this over a little so I can see the whole thing. And I'm going to pull this. Now, you'll notice in the sample as I put this up against here, all right, let me bring this all the way to the front for a second. That white box has got to go to the bleed, okay? So all I'm going to do is adjust this a little bit, and all I want to make sure is that this box is here, here, and I'm actually going to go right to the edge here on my document, okay? Now that box is going to get filled with white, so I go to my swatches, click paper. Then I'm going to pull this over. So this can start to get a little funky. You have to kind of slide it back and forth. You don't have a ton of workspace here. So with this, I am basically going to grab my little friend here. Let me put him back and behind. All right. Send it back. Just like Illustrator, you have your object, arrange, send it back, bring it forward. There are layers in InDesign, but I have honestly, other than using master pages, which we'll get into later, very rarely use layers in InDesign. So right now, I've got my white box, and what I'm going to do is just bring this forward. I'm going to tuck this right here, okay? Then I'm going to take my image, set it back, okay? You could also just do it by eye, line it up here, see where it lines up, okay? As long as it's relatively close, I'm not going to have a major issue with it. All right, I'm actually going to bump that a little bigger. So I've got that. Now I'm going to line this in here. So what's happening? Oh. Object, arrange, bring to front, right? Now I'm just going to tap this with my arrow keys to get it about where I want it. And I think that I'm looking at this space here. That looks good, okay? So now I've got my text. You don't want to have text boxes with giant drop downs like this. It doesn't help you. Easiest thing to do is double click the corner and it'll snap. Now it snapped this, which wasn't great. So I might double click the bottom and it brings it right up, okay? You want to kind of make sure everything is nice and clean, otherwise it's going to get really frustrating. Okay? So that's how you do the top half. So now I've got that. Now I need the glow. And that is, again, a grotesque. So I'm going to grab my font, go here, and just type in GLOW. All right. I might just actually go ahead and go to my properties, go to my font, and I think it's an A space, right? There he is. Now this one's big, so I'll go with like 100 and see if that gets it there. It does not. I'm going to pull my image over, and again, I'm just looking at the G. I'm going to jack this thing way up. If you do it this way, you'll notice it doesn't come with me, which is a little annoying, but I'm just going to get it up until it's all the way where I want it. So let's take a look. There's my arrows. I feel like that's pretty good. I could go a tad bigger, maybe 1 point bigger. There. Okay. Now I've got to stretch it out. So again, now we're going to go to our tracking. We're going to bump this. Oh, now you notice I lost a box, so let me take this and make it bigger. There we go. Okay, let's line it up. And same thing, highlight, and let's jump this a little bit and glow. There you go. So now this, okay, again, let's snap the text, double click, make this white. All right. Now I won't see it until I pull it up here. Now the way this works, if you look at it, it goes right at the bottom, so like kind of the G gets cut off, which is kind of just a nice effect. And I'll pull this over here so I can sort of see the end of it. So I really can't see the end of it there, can I? Inside this. There we go. Okay. And I moved it over. Hold on a sec, sorry. You'll notice I grabbed the hand part and moved everything. That you do a lot of times. You go to grab the center and you go like this, which is annoying. So now I can kind of see where it goes up against the, I'm lining it up against here. So I'm a little beyond the S. All right, and I need to see more of that bottom of that L. Okay, so that looks about right. All right, so that's that so far. I'm going to save now so I have it going. Okay, so that's that so far. The top half, I think you can kind of figure that whole process out. What I want to do is do a little bit with the block here of type. So I am going to grab my type box, and I'm going to draw a box that's about the same size as that. Okay, so now I have a type box. Here it is. I'll pull it over here so I can see it. Okay, I'll actually go Control Command H so I can actually see the outline. That's where you need it sometimes. You notice, look, I don't like looking at it like this, but in order to see that outline, I really need to see it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Place, or Command D, and I'm going to grab the text file. I'm just going to click Open, and I'm going to click it. All right. Now you notice what happens. Okay. So something funky happens here with the recreation of text. So what I'm going to suggest you do is I'm just going to suggest you simply go to your article creation file. You double click and open up. It's probably because it's a Word document. And all I want you to do is select the type and copy it. And then we'll come over here and we're just going to paste it in. Okay? Now, currently it's all caps. So I'm going to go here and I need Helvetica. So I'm going to go to Properties. All right? And I'm just going to go Helvetica. Now, there's 42,000 different kinds of Helveticas. Okay? You notice all the different ones I have. You just want the one that says regular. So the one I have is Helvetica New Regular. So you might have Helvetica Regular, you might have, there's so many versions. They're all roughly the same. Okay? So I'm going to go there to Helvetica. Okay? Now, I'm looking at this and it looks pretty good. Okay? The other thing you can do is you'll notice this looks pixelated. If I right click and say Display Performance and click to High Quality, it'll give me a much nicer look. By default, InDesign brings in files at low resolution so you can work with them a little bit easier. But you can change that resolution by just right-clicking, Display Performance, and High Quality. So I can take my font, drag it over here real quick, and I'm just going to get a rough idea. And that's pretty close. I think it's at 12 point, okay? So now I can pull my box in. Now, what are you noticing? All right, you're noticing first off, what? This has 3 columns, okay? You do not want to take a text box and draw 3 text boxes like this. It's a nightmare. There's a very simple way to do this. All right, I have this box that's the same size as the box I want. Now, you'll notice that I can slide, and you'll see that pink line. That is my centering line. So now it's centered. That box is centered. I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to go to Text Frame Options. And inside my Text Frame Options, I can play with this. Well, what do I want? I want 3 columns. I can click Preview, and all of a sudden you'll notice there it is. Now it looks like that default spacing, okay, is pretty good. That gutter. That's what a gutter is. A gutter is a space between margins or a space between columns. So now it looks like that space is pretty good. Okay. I think that matches up okay. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I have my 3 columns. All right. Now the next thing I need to do, all right, is deal with this box here. So here's where this gets crazy. Now I'm going to go Control Command H. I want to hide everything, so I have my box. I'm going to draw a box. Let me trace this box like this. All right. I need to fill it with white. All right. Now I'm going to put it right here. Well, what's happening? Nothing, right? It's covering over. So how do I make the text react against this box? Well, that's called a text wrap. Okay? And I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to say Text Wrap. This is what's going to tell the text to work around the box. So I'm just going to click on the one that says Wrap Around Bounding Box, because that's what I have. And I click on that, and all of a sudden you'll see what happens. Okay? It goes around it. Now, the other thing I need to do while this is here is I'm going to grab all of my type, and you'll notice this has nice, clean, justified lines. Well, I want to do that too. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to justify at the bottom line left. Now you'll notice it's starting to clean up a little bit, okay? And I'm not a huge, now you'll notice my font is all caps. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to Properties. I don't know why it's all caps. I didn't set it that way, but I'm going to uncheck, all right? And that should give me a little bit better of an option here. Now you'll notice my text box is out. See that? I got my red box, and if I drag this down, well, I got all kinds of problems. So I'm going to grab my text, all of it, Command A, okay, and I'm going to drop it down to a point where it's about the same size, okay? Pretty good. I could probably actually go to Properties, and I could say, let's make it 10.5, all right? And again, as long as it looks close to the recreation, I'm more worried about you using these tools in InDesign to help you create the piece than I am it being dead on. It's got to be close enough. It can't look ridiculous, okay? But that's close enough, okay? Now, I would never let you design it looking like this, but that's a different conversation, okay? So you'll notice that in the recreation, you see all these hyphenations, all right? Those aren't great. You notice I see them too. So what I'm going to do is in my properties, I'm going to go underneath my character, underneath the paragraph down here, it says hyphenate, and I'm going to uncheck. And that way Illustrator, InDesign won't hyphenate words that aren't already hyphenated. It actually puts them in the next line. Okay, so here we are ready to go. Now I've got my text, now I got my text box. Now I want to get this line. Again, this is a grotesque. So I'm simply going to grab my box, I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to type it out. This is all caps. A fruit that is loaded. I'm going to go space, I'm going to return with skin protective antioxidants, right? Quotes. I got my quotes up here. Quotes, right? Now I know it's a grotesque and it's red, so I'm simply going to grab one of these guys up here, all right? And obviously it needs to get smaller. It's also going to have to go to Properties and be centered, all right? So now I would grab my type. Command A gets all of it. Go to my Properties, and let's drop it down quite a bit. Okay, and by the way, my leading is way off too. So I'm just for now, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my leading back to where it was. Okay, so let's hide this for a second. Let's go in here. Let's go over and see where I am size-wise. Zooming in. And, you know, you're going to say to yourself sometimes, now this is just a simple assignment, you know, well, when would I ever recreate something? I can't tell you how many times a client has brought something to me, either an old PDF file or an actual printed document that I've had to go ahead and recreate because they just wanted to have the same thing. They just wanted it in a digital version. So believe it or not, this does happen professionally, that you have to do this, where you have to recreate someone else's work when you don't have the physical piece of it. So that looks pretty close, okay? So now you notice, again, now I've got issues with my tracking. So I'm going to bump my tracking, all right? And I also want to make sure that the box is the same size. So I want to make sure that I'm here, all right, and pulling this out, because you'll notice that this is a little funky. So I'm going to take this line, and I'm going to drop it in, all right? And because it's centered, you'll notice it reacts a little bit weirder, all right? And I'm just going to take this, see that? So I want this to just be big enough where it has the return. That's it. So I'm just going to shrink this down. Okay, now I can take this and mess around with my letting. Now you'll notice that, excuse me, my tracking, that each line is a little different. So I'm actually going to do this first. I'm going to go with my letting so I can see what's going on here. All right, that makes it a little easier, right? That's close enough. Bring it back up a tad. Okay. And I'm pretty dead on here. I'm going to adjust this a little bit. You'll notice some words even are, and that is a difference in font. Okay, so that's close. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Now, I'll take this, and I'm going to drag it over here. Whoop. Okay. What happened? Why is it giving me an error? Why is it telling me I got to overset text? There's the text. I bring it over here. So what's happening is this text is reacting to this text wrap. All right. So what I have to do is click on this text box, right click, and go to text frame options. And right down here, I got to check ignore text wrap. Because no matter what I do with this text box, until I click ignore text wrap, this thing will react to this text wrap that we have here. Okay. So this wrap, I'm actually going to bump a little bit because you'll notice I don't want it to completely on. So I'm just going to drop it just a little. I can add more text wrap, which is nice. Okay. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to plop it right in the center using that red line. Okay. And I'm going to drop it down a little bit. So now, okay, let me hide this. All right. And I feel like this white box isn't the right. Oh, you know what? It's because of the lines. So sometimes, see how this line is really far away? Sometimes, depending on how that is, you can actually unlock your text wrap and you can adjust like the top. I can bring the top down a little bit. And the same thing with the bottom. I want the bottom back up a little bit. See? And you can just mess around until you get it. Again, close enough is okay. Can't look ridiculous, but close enough is okay. So that's that so far. Again, now I'm going to save. So you see I'm recreating this. It's not taking me, this hasn't taken me too long. Okay? That's the hardest part to recreate. I'm going to leave the health and fitness part and the number for you to do. I think you can do that through here. Again, I don't need to see the labels. I know over the years students have put the labels in. But that's how you're going to recreate this. And between the InDesign 101 playing around and doing your recreation, the idea is to get you comfortable with being able to lay out, because the next video is all about your magazine.